Welcome to the Rugby Obsession Deep Dive. Make sure to subscribe to the Rugby Obsession YouTube channel and newsletter from the link in the description.
Yeah, it's great to be back for this one.
It really is. So, imagine stepping off a plane after like a brutal 12-hour flight. You lace up your boots, and immediately you're asked to sprint for 80 minutes.
Oh, man, brutal.
And the air's so thin, it literally burns your throat every time you take a breath.
Yeah, that is historically the absolute nightmare waiting for, any rugby team traveling to play in Johannesburg.
Exactly. But today, we're unpacking this intensely debated article by Ben Smith over at RugbyPass.
Right, and it completely flips that conventional wisdom on its head, which I love.
It does. He claims this ultimate Springbok fortress might actually be a giant trap. And not for the visitors, but for the Springboks themselves.
Yeah, so we're looking at the highly anticipated 2026 Test series between the All Blacks and the Springboks. And the South African Rugby Union made this massive scheduling call. They put 2 of their 3 tests at severe high altitude. So specifically at Ellis Park and FNB Stadium, which most fans know as Soccer City.
Soccer City, yeah.
Exactly. And for decades, the Veld, that high altitude plateau has been the place visiting teams go to suffer.
Oh, for sure. The thin air doesn't just exhaust you. It fundamentally changes the physics of the game.
Making the ball fly further.
Right, and just punishing any team that isn't used to the climate. Okay,
Yeah.
Let's unpack this, because if you look at it on paper, this sounds like an absolute death sentence for the All Blacks.
It really does.
You're playing against a massive, physically intimidating South African forward pack in an environment practically designed to suffocate you.
Yeah, but Ben Smith's article calls this scheduling decision a massive faux pas.
A faux pas, wow.
He argues it might actually perfectly suit the All Blacks and their coach, Dave Rennie.
Okay, so to understand why altitude could potentially backfire on the home team, we really have to look at the physical reality. Like how a heavy forward pack reacts to thin air when they're forced into an expansive, high-tempo running game.
And this is where the biomechanics becomes super fascinating.
Oh, I love this part.
Right. Think about a tight head prop. That's the player wearing the number 3 jersey, usually weighing around, 130 kilograms?
Yeah, massive guys.
Massive. Their entire existence on a pitch is designed around generating immense static power.
Anchoring the scrum, clearing out rucks, wrestling people to the floor.
Exactly. They are built for anaerobic short bursts of brutal strength. What they are not built for is aerobic endurance.
Sprinting sideline to sideline.
Right. The article argues that if you can force those massive human beings into constant lateral movement, you can literally, quote, cook them over coals.
Cook them over coals. I mean, it's like making a massive heavyweight boxer chase a nimble lightweight around the ring.
That is a perfect analogy. Like, the heavyweight has the knockout power, absolutely. One clean shot and you're done.
Yeah.
But if you make them swing and miss and constantly pivot and chase you from corner to corner, eventually their legs just go heavy.
They do.
They become too exhausted to keep their guard up. But honestly, doing that against the Springboks sounds a bit like a suicide mission. Does anyone actually execute this in the real world without getting crushed?
They absolutely do. And honestly, it is devastating to watch when it clicks.
Wait, really?
Oh, yeah. The article brings up a couple of brilliant historical precedents. Let's look at the Wallabies match against the Boks in 2025.
Okay.
The Springboks actually came out and took a commanding 22-0 lead in the first half. They were completely dominant.
Great. I remember that.
But then, operating under the instruction of their attack coach, Tony Brown, they decided to start slinging the ball around. They tried to play this highly expansive, showboating style of rugby. Wait, I'm trying to picture this. The Springboks, the kings of pragmatic, forward-dominated rugby, decided to start throwing wide passes and running it from everywhere.
Exactly. And it was a fatal error.
Wow.
By trying to play that expansive game themselves, they forced their own massive forwards to constantly run in support and cover wide channels.
So they fatigued themselves.
Yes. Once the heavy men gassed out, the Wallabies realized the defensive line speed had completely vanished.
Oh, man.
The Australians just started running rings around them and scored 38 unanswered points to win the game.
38 unanswered points against the South African defense is mind-blowing. But the blueprint for the All Blacks specifically goes back a bit further, right? To that 2022 game at Ellis Park under Joe Schmidt.
Yeah, that 2022 match is the ultimate case study for this high-veld trap.
Right.
Under Joe Schmidt, the All Blacks decided to execute this daring, high-risk running game deep from their own territory.
Which is crazy, because usually if you get the ball in your own 22-meter area, convention says you kick it downfield as far as you can to relieve the pressure.
Exactly. You do not run it.
Right.
But the All Blacks decided to counterattack from their own goal line. They used players like Rieko Ioane and Will Jordan to attack the absolute edges of the field.
So what does this all mean for those massive guys in the Springbok pack we were talking about earlier? Like, if you are that 130-kilogram tight head prop and suddenly the opposition is sprinting down the sideline from their own half, what happens to you?
Well, your reality becomes a total nightmare.
Yeah.
You're suddenly forced to turn your massive frame around and sprint 60 or 70 meters backward just to get back into a defensive line.
Ouch.
And doing that repeatedly at 1,700 meters above sea level is just catastrophic for your oxygen reserve.
I can only imagine. Your muscles fill with lactic acid, your lungs burn, and your defensive structure completely shatters.
Exactly. During that 2022 test, this exact tactic resulted in David Harley scoring an absolute dagger of a try.
Right. It started with a Rieko Ioane break from deep inside his own half.
Yep. The All Blacks ended up winning 35-22 simply because the South African defense was completely gassed. They just crumbled under the sheer pace of the game.
It's like the ultimate rope-a-dope strategy. But executing a high-risk running game from your own goal line isn't just about having fast players.
No, definitely not.
It requires a coach who is willing to roll the dice and embrace the chaos, a truly bold tactician. And that brings us to the current All Blacks coach, Dave Rennie. If you're enjoying this tactical breakdown, remember to subscribe to the Rugby Obsession YouTube channel and newsletter from the link in the description.
Nice. Yeah, what's fascinating here is Dave Rennie's track record.
Let's get into it.
When you look at the data, you realize he isn't just a bold coach. He has a deeply proven, almost mathematical system for dismantling South African teams.
Yeah, the article leans heavily into his time coaching the Chiefs in Super Rugby between 2012 and 2017.
He practically built a dynasty with them.
Before Rennie arrived, the Chiefs were struggling, right? They had something like a sub 40% win rate.
They were consistently underperforming. But Rennie pushed their overall win rate to nearly 70%.
Wow.
And his record specifically against South African teams was just astonishing.
Right, we're talking 19 wins, 2 draws, and only 4 losses.
Yeah, that is a 76% win rate against the very style of rugby we're discussing.
That's huge.
And in the playoffs, they didn't just edge out victories. They inflicted massive blowouts. They demolished the Sharks 37-6 in the 2012 final.
Unbelievable.
They knocked out the Stormers back-to-back at home with scores like 60-21. That isn't just winning a game of rugby.
No.
That is systematically short-circuiting an opponent's philosophy.
Yeah, and I actually went down a rabbit hole figuring out how he pulled this off later with the Wallabies because it sounds impossible to keep repeating.
It does, yeah.
But he achieved a 75% win rate over the Springboks with Australia, including 3 consecutive shock wins against a Boks side that were the reigning world champions.
It wasn't just abstract good coaching or locker room motivation.
Right? He designed these incredibly brilliant, highly engineered strike plays. He brought back Quade Cooper to pilot the attack, and he created this fake line-out maul that was just pure genius.
This is a crucial point because it highlights exactly how you manipulate a heavy team.
Exactly.
What were the actual mechanics of that fake maul?
Okay, so picture a standard line-out. The forward pack lines up, the ball is thrown in, and someone jumps to catch it.
Standard stuff.
Right. At the time, the Springboks had a terrifying defensive strategy. The moment an opposing team caught the ball and formed a maul, which is basically a giant wrestling match where everyone binds together and tries to push forward, the massive Springbok forwards would just grab onto it and violently drive the whole thing over the sideline.
They just bullied teams into submission.
Grade knew this. He knew they couldn't resist a physical confrontation. So he had the Wallabies set up what looked exactly like a standard maul. They jumped, caught the ball, and gathered around the jumper. The Springboks immediately took the bait. They committed all their heavy forwards, firing into this massive pushing contest.
They committed all their weight to a single point on the field.
Completely swallowed the hook.
Yeah.
Because the millisecond the Bongs committed their weight, the Wallabies detached.
Yeah.
They didn't push back. Instead, they took the ball and sent their inside center, Samu Karevi, rocketing straight up the vacant space at the tail end of the lineout.
Oh, brilliant.
The seam was completely wide open because the entire Bonk defensive line was busy wrestling a ghost maul. Karevi bursts through, getting massive yards over the gain line, meaning he penetrated deep into the opposition's territory before anyone could even lay a hand on him.
So if we connect this back to the altitude and the fatigue we discussed earlier, think about the physical toll of that single play.
It's brutal.
You have a pack of Springbok forwards who just violently launch themselves into a maul, only to find nothing there. They collapse onto the ground. Now, those 130-kilogram men have to haul themselves up off the turf, turn around, and backtrack 20 or 30 meters just to get back on side.
Meanwhile, the Wallabies are already launching their next lightning-fast phase against a completely scattered defense.
It was lethal.
Rennie used this to isolate mismatched numbers on the opposite edge of the field. It led to massive tries, like Len Ikitau scoring a double in Brisbane during a 30-17 win.
And this is the crux of Ben Smith's argument in the RugbyPass article. Rennie has over a decade of experience plotting the downfall of South African rugby.
He really does.
He knows exactly what kind of high-tempo misdirection game plans work. And crucially, he has the nerve to call for these high-risk running plays out wide from his own goal line.
He completely embraces the chaos. But, as with any tactical theory, it's only as good as its stress tests in the real world.
Yeah, very true.
Which brings us to the most entertaining part of this entire deep dive. The fans.
Oh, yeah.
The rugby community in the comment section of this article did not hold back. They are incredibly passionate, and honestly, we want to embrace these multiple perspectives because finding the truth in a sports debate usually means looking at all sides.
Absolutely.
And just to be super clear to you, the listener, we are not taking sides here. We're just impartially exploring the counter-arguments these fans brought to the table.
The comment section practically served as a peer review board for the article, and they raised some incredibly sharp points.
Here's where it gets really interesting, because the commenters immediately attack the foundational logic of the article.
They did.
They essentially asked, can we really apply statistics from a 2012 Super Rugby Club season to the back-to-back world champion Springbok test team we will see in 2026? It feels like comparing apples to a highly militarized orange.
It is an incredibly valid critique.
Right.
One of the major themes the fans brought up is what we can call the fitness reality. The entire premise of the article assumes that the massive Springboks will eventually gas out and crumble in the final quarter of the match.
Right.
But commenters, like one named John Fix, correctly pointed out that the Springboks' fitness is actually one of their greatest weapons.
Wait, so are the heavy guys actually staying on the field long enough to get cooked over those goals?
Yeah.
Because South Africa completely revolutionized how substitutions work with the bomb squad, didn't they?
Exactly. The Springboks don't expect their starting heavyweights to sprint for 80 minutes. They have fundamentally changed the psychology and physiology of the game.
Oh, wow.
Around the 50 or 60-minute mark, they bring on an entirely fresh pack of massive elite forwards, the bomb squad.
Bomb squad.
These guys are specifically conditioned to come on and utterly dominate the final 20 minutes of a game when the opposition is tired.
That's terrifying.
The commenters argue that it is actually the All Blacks who have struggled with late-game fitness and closing out tight matches in recent years. To assume the Boks will be the ones to wilt completely ignores their modern conditioning and bench strategy.
That's a great point. Then there is what we'll call the altitude reality. A commenter named Wayne Ho wrote this brilliant, blistering response pointing out a massive flaw in the article's premise about the thin air.
Okay, what did he say?
He notes that the Springboks front row doesn't just visit the altitude. They are born and bred in it. They play their domestic rugby in Pretoria and Johannesburg.
This raises an important question about human biology. Altitude adaptation isn't just a state of mind. Your body physically changes when you live at 1,700 meters above sea level.
Right, your body naturally produces more red blood cells to carry what little oxygen there is in the air.
Exactly. You are literally biologically engineered for that specific environment.
Yeah. Wayne Ho argues that the idea of a visiting team flying 12 hours from sea level, somehow outlasting the biologically adapted locals in a lung-burning furnace, he's basically inventing new physics.
He's not wrong. The altitude will always heavily favor the home team, even if they are larger.
I hadn't even considered the biological adaptation angle. It makes perfect sense. But I also hadn't considered the completely unathletic angle until I read a comment by a guy named Backstein.
Oh, the financial reality.
Yes. We are sitting here having this incredibly deep tactical debate about oxygen deprivation, lactic acid, and fake malls. And Backstein just calmly points out that scheduling matches at Ellis Park and Soccer City has absolutely nothing to do with a tactical faux pas by the coaching staff.
It grounds the entire conversation in the reality of modern professional sports.
Totally. Backstein points out that Johannesburg simply offers the largest stadiums available. FNB Stadium, or Soccer City, has a capacity of nearly 90,000 seats.
Right, so while the tacticians are worrying about the thin air, the accounting department is just looking at 90,000 ticket sales and corporate hospitality boxes and seeing dollar signs.
Exactly. In the professional era, scheduling is driven by maximizing revenue and broadcasting optics. The union isn't micromanaging the altitude dynamics to suit the tight head props. They are trying to fund the sport.
It is a phenomenal point. But regardless of whether the decision was made in a boardroom or a coach's box, the tactical reality on the field remains identical.
That's true.
When that whistle blows, the match still has to be played at 1,700 meters. The environment doesn't care why you were there.
Exactly. So, to synthesize all of this, what we are really looking at in 2026 isn't just a rugby match. It is a collision of two completely opposite rugby religions.
Beautifully said.
Thanks. On one side, you have the historical, calculated genius of Dave Rennie. He is a coach with a proven track record of using high-risk, high-tempo misdirection to completely dismantle heavy South African packs.
Yep.
He knows how to exploit the seams, he knows how to manipulate aggressive defenses, and he has the sheer courage to run the ball from his own try line, just to force those massive forwards to run backward until they break.
And on the exact opposite side of the spectrum, you have the raw, undeniable reality of the modern Springbok machine.
The absolute unit.
A back-to-back world champion side that is deeply confident in its physical dominance.
Right.
They are armed with a fresh bomb squad waiting on the bench, and they are biologically adapted to thrive in the high altitude of their home fortress. They dare you to try and run around them, knowing that eventually you will have to tackle them.
It is the ultimate irresistible force meeting the immovable object. And honestly, we want to hear your opinions on this.
Definitely.
Who do you think has the real advantage in Johannesburg? Is it Dave Rennie's tactical speed and misdirection, or the Springboks' altitude-adapted size and bomb squad?
Yeah.
Let us know your thoughts in the comments.
You know, if we connect this to the bigger picture, it leaves you with something really profound to consider about the evolution of sports.
What's that?
Does a coach's historical system, no matter how brilliant and effective it was in 2012 or 2022, eventually have an expiration date? Or does a truly brilliant tactical mind always find a way to exploit sheer physical size, regardless of the era, the opponent, or the altitude?
That is the million-dollar question we'll see answered on the pitch. Before we go, please subscribe to the Rugby Obsession YouTube channel and newsletter from the link in the description. Thank you for listening to the Rugby Obsession Deep Dive, and we'll look forward to you listening to our next episode.